I never got back. I went this Friday.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know there's a few folks who are gathering up their last morsels. Again, if it's possible, if it is possible for you all to come forward, there's a few things that are necessary for this. If you are a voting member of our congregation and you have signed the book, you should have a blue ballot that looks something like this, right? Does everyone have one of these? Great. You also may want a copy of our annual report, which, thank you, can I just say thank you to our clerk, John Bancroft, who put this together. So thank you, John Bancroft, to this. There are hard copies, but there's also a digital copy that I'll be including along with a link to the recording of this meeting. The digital copy was shared in last Thursday's epistle. I'll do that for a couple weeks, but so if you want to save paper and you're okay with electronic, you can do it that way. There was a question just before we sat down, just before church started. You know how sometimes people ask questions as we're walking into church? Someone said to me, George, what constitutes a quorum? That's a great question for me. And for you, so I'm going to ask our senior warden, do we have a quorum assembled for this meeting?
I'd say yes.
All right. The senior warden, having declared a quorum, take it up with him if you don't think so. I would say at 11:40 that I would call this annual meeting to order. Now, the way that this works is pretty straightforward. We're going to open with prayer. We are going to have an opportunity to approve last year's minutes. Remember, we were approving the minutes of last year's annual meeting. We are going to vote. Then you're going to hear some reports from the senior warden, the junior warden, and me. There'll be a time for question and answer before we thank outgoing members of the vestry and announce those folks who have been elected as leaders of our church. All of this within the next 1 hour and a half. 15 hour? We'll do our best. I'm grateful for your ability to stay present. We're going to use some of those tools that we learned in conflict transformation of doing our best to avoid side talk, which is to say that if you have questions, you can hold those for the question and answer time. If you have something that's burning on your heart, sometimes it's hard for the rest of us to hear when other folks are talking, so we can do that. And anything else that I need to say, Jamie or Sam, before we begin? Let's open with prayer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with those who take counsel in the Cathedral Church of St. Luke for the renewal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the 2024 annual meeting. These are found on page. All right, so moved. All in favor? Thank you so much. The other thing that I want to make sure that we do is a territorial acknowledgement. St. Luke's acknowledges that we are worshiping on unceded territory taken by force and previously occupied by the Wabanaki people. Some of the resources that built this cathedral came from industry related to the slave trades in the 18th and 19th centuries. We join our fellow residents in honoring the Wabanaki knowledge and culture that continues to thrive in the tribal nations. We ask for blessing and peace upon all indigenous peoples that have called and will always call this place the Dawn Land. which means home. Thank you. We're going to do just a very brief, now we're going to move to the next thing on our agenda, which is the ballot explanation. Everyone has one of these. Raise your hand if you need one. Does anyone need one? Okay, great. So the way that this works is part of our practice here is for the nominating committee to receive names of folks who to participate in the life of our parish as parish leaders. We also, as part of Robert's rules, always accept nominations from the floor. I'd first like to read the nominee for senior warden. The nominee for senior warden is John Hennessy. Thank you, John. John, you want to stand up so people can see you? That's John. Yeah. I'd also like if the nominees are here, if they would be able to stand and be identified. I'd like to identify the vestry nominees. Peter Carlton. Thank you, Peter. Joe DeKay. Catherine Hyde. Laura Lyons. Parker Roberts. Will Solomon. Great. Now I would like to introduce and recognize representatives to Diocesan Convention. Sam Allen, Sarah Brake, Fred Fowler, Philip Hamilton. Susan McCullough is traveling this week, and Curtis Morand is sick. At this point, this is the slate of the nominating committee presented to you, but I would also entertain any nominations from the floor. You're recognized. Yes?
Is it okay if I run for the vestry?
Hang on one second. He has a question about whether he can run for the vestry. Yes, Bob Hanson, you can put yourself forward as a nominee for vestry.
Because I was nominated by a member of the vestry, but my name doesn't appear.
Thank you so much. So you may add as a write-in the Reverend Dr. Bob Hanson as a nominee from the floor. Great. Say again, that was for vestry. Seeing no other nominees from the floor, move the nominations. Is there a second? All in favor? Let's give ourselves just a couple minutes to fill out these ballots. Once you're finished, you can hold them up, and our counters, Peter Bingham and Georgia Bancroft, will pick those up. No, we're going to do it in a different order. You're going to close it. I'm going first. I'm going to go first, and then you're second, and then, is that okay? I made a mess. Huh? You did. You put it in my pocket. Maybe. See if someone's got a napkin right here. Are we? I thought I bought a pack of them. I thought I bought like 100. Jamie, thanks for doing that. That was a huge pickup. So, were there enough sandwiches or not? Yeah, the quiche. I was like, thank you for doing that. expecting to like eat like a meal. Are there there's a few folks, Peter, behind you there. Great. Thank you all so much. The results will be returned at the end of our meeting today. The next thing on our agenda is there's going to be an opportunity for me to talk a little bit about the last year and to talk about our next steps in our search for our dean. Then we're going to turn it over to your junior warden, Jamie Koff, and then our final remarks will be made by outgoing senior warden Sam Henderson. Sam Allen. You can tell I'm a little bit caffeinated this morning. I'm grateful. Can I just say that I'm grateful? I stand before you deeply grateful for the time that we've had together. Last year, do you remember what it was like last year? I told you about an experience that I had had at a church where I served for 4 years as an interim. And everyone thought, oh my God. I told you with great confidence that I would not be here for years. I continue to share that confidence with you. It has been 17 months, believe it or not, since I arrived. It's been 2 years since Ben left and went to his next parish. And I would say that this year, since I've arrived, has been filled with incredible joys and sorrows. I have incredible colleagues. Christian Clough is incredibly talented and has shared his gifts with us. Avery Schott, who's no longer here, was an amazing asset for us. Christopher Worthley volunteers his time as an assisting priest, as does the Reverend Rebecca Grant as our deacon. We have Curtis, and we have Donna, and we have Bruno, and we have an amazing group of people who make this place run. But most of all, we have you all. I am hopeful. This year has been filled with forward progress with a few steps back. And I do not want for us to forget that we are making great progress forward. What I would say is about the process for which we've had as a body is that we gathered together this time last year and introduced the idea that we would be sharing with you our congregational assessment tool survey. That survey, as you know, demonstrated that we needed some work on conflict transformation, which we undertook. We worked on that through the spring and summer. We gathered in the fall for an amazing experience. How many of you are here for the World Cafe? Raise your hand if you were here for the World Cafe. The World Cafe was a culmination of that conflict transformation work where we could share our experiences and hopes for this place. Your vestry received that along with a number of fantastic things that happened in the fall as an opportunity for us to be forward-looking in our next steps in calling a new dean. In October, we gathered for vestry. Was it our November meeting that fell apart?
Yes, in October we gathered to talk about the office transition.
That's right. In October, we gathered downstairs after church to do a bunch of work on starting to fill out our Office of Transition Ministry work, which is the answers to the questions, kind of our dating profile that we'll be sharing. November, our vestry got together to populate the committees that would take on the work of calling a new dean. And we realized very quickly after that meeting that we were unable to, or we were not ready as a body to do this work. So many people asked, what happened? There are two answers to this question. One of them is that I hope that you recognize that much of our conversation is not confidential, but the process and the way and what people said made it clear that it was that we were not ready to call people yet. Now that sounds really hard. You think like, wow, how could we be so ready and then not? What happened? What was the difference? And I wish I had a very specific answer. There have been people who said, I know what happened. And the answer is there were a lot of things that happened. And it meant that we as a body had a very hard meeting led by the bishop in December where we decided to step back. And into that place of stepping back from populating those 4 committees, we recognized that there were a number of really important things that we must address before we move forward with calling a new dean. These have been shared since that time, and so this will not be a surprise to you, but I'll say them again and speak to a few of them. The first thing that we need help with is understanding our mission. The Cathedral of St. Luke is rich in ministry, diverse ministry, and yet one of the things that is obvious to me and maybe to you is that sometimes those various ministries do not see each other as part of a larger whole. And so our work moving forward is going to be understanding a shared mission. What's helpful about a shared mission is that it allows us to check that everything that we're doing is pointing back towards the mission that we agree upon. What's hard about it is that sometimes things that we individually care about are outside of that mission. This is going to be hard work for us as a body to understand our mission. The second thing, which is a nice thing, is hospitality. Over and over in the congregational assessment tool and in surveys and in conversations, we've recognized how valuable great hospitality practices are. This is not limited to great coffee hours, even though Meredith Cost does a great job with coffee hours, but extends into how we relate to our neighborhood, how we relate to the wider world, and how we relate to each other. Some of the times when we've fallen short of God's wish for us, and we have fallen back into some of the practices where we are not as nice to each other and not using some of the practices that we learned in our work of conflict transformation, are going to be part of this work with our continued work on hospitality. So this work that we're going to take up on hospitality is both external, about how we relate to the West End, to Portland, to our migrant neighbors, and also to ourselves. The third thing that our vestry identified that we really need help on is not ours to know, but ours to learn. And that is what it means to be a cathedral, what it means to be the cathedral for the Diocese of Maine. I have asked Bishop Thomas Brown to tell us and to teach us what it means for this group of people, the parishioners of the Cathedral of St. Luke, what his expectations are for us as parishioners of a church that also has always been the cathedral for the Diocese of Maine. So there are 2 things that we are going to be working on: hospitality and mission. There is one thing that we are going to learn, which is what it means to be a cathedral. And there is another thing that we're going to bring up again and again and again. It's our budget, our financial issues. Jamie is going to speak very specifically about our financial challenges and how that work is dealing with that work is necessary before we call our next dean. But it's suffice it to say that this is not a new thing. We have been in a deficit budget of varying sizes, as much as $100,000 for the last 3 years. It has not been front and center in the same way as it could have been and probably should have been, because we were flush with cash from the COVID PPP loan. And so it made it easy for us to kick it down the road. Well, we can't kick it down the road anymore. Those funds are diminishing, and we are now reaching the space where we need to have some hard conversations about giving, about fundraising, about using our space, about planned giving, and about all of the ways in which this community is rich in resources and how those rich resources can be kind of pulled together to make this place succeed. Timing-wise, I'll tell you that for many of us, this announcement that we were stopping the search until today seems like a long way. Yeah, there's a question over here. You have a question?
Related to the financial point, I'm curious, some of the ways you talk about that, about potential use of our space by temporary.
Right, that's on the list, absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. The question was about using our space for temporary housing, right? For our migrant neighbors, and how that could be part of our fundraising, right? What I was going to say is that our work the timing of this is hard. It feels like it's a long distance since we decided in November that we needed to take a break in our time where we gathered with the bishop in December to talk about our next steps together, and I'm grateful for your patience. One of the things that you should hear from me is that I recognize that for some of you, this in-between time feels like lost time. I've heard that from you, and I want you to know that that for the folks who are anxious to call a next dean, I hear you. I will tell you that I'm also anxious for you to call another dean. This work is hard, and it takes me away from my family. And I am incredibly grateful for the ways in which you've allowed me to have a little bit more of a flexible schedule of here versus Massachusetts. But I will tell you, I am anxious for you all to call a new dean. I love you. Don't get me wrong. Don't hear that as judgment. Just hear it as miles on my car ticking up. Timing-wise, what I'm imagining happening is we're going to vote on new leadership today. And it's really important for me to tell you that having new vestry leadership to help determine the way forward for these 4 committees. 3 committees. There's one external group, which is Thomas teaching us about what it means to be a cathedral, but then 3 working groups. 3 working groups. One of them will tackle our budget, one of them will tackle our mission, and one that will continue work with hospitality. These 3 groups will be populated at least with leaders in the next few weeks. We're going to be working with the leaders who are called into those places to develop working committees. These are going to be relatively small committees of around 6 people, because we found that that's an effective number to actually have meetings with 6 people who there's accountability in that size of a group, and it also means that we can make plans together. So we're gonna form 3 committees of around 18 people of this body. Some of them will be members of our vestry, some of them will not be. And the idea is that those groups will be charged with addressing some of the things that our vestry identified: hospitality, finances, and mission, so that we can be prepared to answer the questions from any person, whether when they're called to be our next dean, because those are questions that we need to have ready answers for, and I'm not sure that we do right now. Y'all understand? So in the next month, you'll hear from us around leaders and how we're going to take your input for suggesting people to be on these committees. Another thing that I want to make sure that you hear from me is that I know that how important transparency is in this body. One of the things that we learned in our congregational assessment tool and in lots of conversations is that one of the ways in which we've hurt each other historically is that we're not transparent about how decisions are being made. And I want you to hear from me that this work is going to be done as transparently as possible, also respecting kind of the privacy of the people who are involved. It's really tricky to do both, but I want to do it. Yes, I see another question. Yes, Shayna. Yes.
One is, how are we discerning what modes of discernment are we figuring out?
That's a transparency piece. We're going to talk about that. We haven't decided that yet.
And then my other question is, how are we going to involve the parish as a whole, aside from the
I imagine that those groups will be inviting the parish. Each group is going to determine how they want to involve the wider parish. Good question, Shayna. Yes. No, it's going to be chosen by the new leadership of our vestry. Yep. So we are going to call new vestry members, and then the new vestry will identify the people who are going to lead those 3 committees. Great question. Great. Yes, Will.
As part of what does it mean to be a cathedral? Is it anticipated that there may be site visits to other dioceses?
You know, this work is going to be done by, this is a great question. He asked, what does it mean to be a cathedral? Are there site visits? The question is great. The bishop is going to be doing some education about what it means to be a cathedral and what it means to be the Cathedral of Maine. And I do not want to guess how he's going to do that work. But thank you, that's a really good question. Great. So I am happy, we're going to have a lot more time for questions and answers later, but I would now like to turn it over to your junior warden, Jamie Koff, who's going to speak about the financial budgetary work that is necessary and a little bit of the history of how we got here. Thank you, Jamie.
Hi. Old, creaky, in need of a lot of maintenance. Me, not the cathedral. I want to really thank the volunteers. I mean, if you look around, this is a 20 some odd thousand square foot facility. We have virtually no maintenance staff here. It's all done by volunteers. Oh, okay. All right, thanks. It's most of the work is done by volunteers, and I really, when you look around, everybody sees Fred and Pat Fowler here. They're here all the time. Sam, Alan, Priscilla Webster. These people have done an inordinate amount of work for the cathedral, both inside and out, and the place just sparkles because of them. And I want everybody else to recognize, if you've done anything on buildings and grounds inside and out, if you could stand up for a second so that people can recognize you. I think we've got a lot of people here. So some of the highlights from last year, I put a lot in the report, but I think one of the ideas that Priscilla had, which I think is excellent, was if you want to adopt an area of the outside of the building, that would be wonderful. We have some people like the Thorns do a lot of work out back. Willie does some work out front, and we've got Rob and Alice do the rain garden. There's all sorts of opportunities to pitch in. But just see myself or Priscilla for any of that, if you've got some ideas around that. We've had a lot of leaky roofs around. Fred has fortunately done some work on that. We've got some inspections that have been done. As you probably can see, the tower is going to need some repairs. Fred had a drone come in, and we're getting that priced out. A lot of big things. Curtis has worked on lighting throughout the cathedral. We're almost all LED lighting. The signage on the cathedral was recently completed last year, thanks to many, but particularly to Fred, Sam, and I think Lynn Parsons worked on that as well. Sam's apartment was refurbished, and that's an opportunity possibly for income. We put in a new security system. Haven't got quite all the bugs worked out yet, but the idea is eventually that'll be a lot more robust. It will give us the opportunity to layer in cameras and other sensors throughout the building. But we do have some security concerns, and if you haven't been kind of if it hasn't happened to you, just be careful. We have some folks that we've had drug use, needles, and people, unhoused people, addicts, mental health issues, and please be very careful. Don't try to do this yourself. Please, you can contact, we can work with the office or contact the police. It's a real concern. And I know that's, that's one of the areas that we haven't funded this year, but we can talk about that in a second. So plans for the coming year, the budget right now, and George talked about this a little bit, we've trimmed 10% from the maintenance budget, which is quite a bit, but that's only because we've got not a lot to work with. And so it should get us by, but if we have any larger maintenance issues, we're going to have to come back to the congregation and the finance committee and the vestry to do that work. I'd like to actually get folks together to talk about capital projects. This is really kind of hopes and dreams. What do you want the cathedral to look like, the physical plan, and how can we support this vision for the cathedral that comes out of some of these subgroups? Then we've got the tower repairs. We don't know what that's going to cost. That could be a big ticket item. We don't have any pricing on that yet, but and you back to the security stuff. We've got the new system in, but we're going to be training the staff, the bishops involved, because it does involve Loring House as well, because they're passing in and out through here. And we have the Portland Police Department. They're more of a presence now than they've ever been. They park in the lot, and they do sweeps. But this is an ongoing issue, and it seems to have gotten worse this year than it has in past. So kind of the big elephant in the room is the parking lot and parking lot management. We have rented the parking lot for many years to Mercy Hospital. As you know, Mercy's not there anymore. We have some renters. We're trying to do our best. We are looking at several options with multiple vendors, at least 2, maybe more than that. Just so you know, parking lot management's a lot of work. It involves towing, monitoring, coordinating with plow contractors, striping, repairs, just contract management. And I took a day off from work to come down here and kind of supervise all that this last storm, because we had cars in the lot that we needed towed. So there's going to be some changes, but it will be a larger conversation once we get the proposal out, because the idea is basically to continue the operations as normal, as mostly normal as we can, with a lot of restrictions on the parking company to give us a lot of flexibility, but also to increase our revenue. So it's a balance. It's hopefully by within the next month or 2 we'll have some information out for everybody. So, but it will be kind of a bigger discussion with everybody. I've tried to get a lot of information out to folks and received a lot of great feedback, and that will help shape how we're going to move forward, but it won't be done in a vacuum. So I guess the last thing I want to talk about was briefly is about the financial issues, because since Randy's not here, there is a great page, and unfortunately it's not numbered in here, but sustaining the cathedral in ways to give. And I think the Bancrofts, I think what they said to me a while ago was they look at giving to the endowment as a perpetual annual gift. And if there's going to be a lot of work around that, but there's three kind of three areas that Randy had put in the annual report for today, giving for today, for tomorrow, and forever. And I really encourage you to look at that. But just looking back a little bit, you know, in 2022, we knew that we were going to have a shortfall this year. Tim Wilkins had spent a lot of time. He kind of forecast the budget. And then we had, you know, Priscilla, Meredith, Claire, Dawn, myself. We had a group get together, come up with it was over 100 different ideas. We met with the cathedral. We had a couple of community meetings, and we kind of winnowed that down, then prioritized based on what was really achievable. And then we really did nothing with it as a community. It wasn't up to this group to implement that, but we have starting places out there. So and things have evolved since then. So I think we've got an opportunity to launch off of that. Our budget gap for 2025, again, getting back to staffing, we're not filling security, we're not filling education, and the assistant clergy staff positions as well. So we've, and as I said before, we've cut the maintenance budget down. I'm really excited actually about the stewardship piece, because I think, you know, my kind of whole mentality about St. Luke's is that we become the community center before we become a community center. I think, you know, building activity into this for, and George mentioned it earlier, is, you know, whether we become, you know, just a leading house of conversation, thought, you know, just bringing that all into St. Luke's. I think we have a place to offer for the city of Portland. And then, you know, we're going to be working really hard to do this, but it's going to take all of us. This is, it's scary, it's exciting, but it's the only way forward. And but anyways, I thank you very much. I actually want to mention one more thing about Fred. He volunteered when Claire left. He took over the junior warden spot, and has just been working tirelessly as junior warden until I came on board. So I just am really grateful for, you know, kind of that transition with Fred and with Sam. So, but. But thank you very much, and like I'm.
Thanks. Over to you, Dan.
Okay. Yes, Dan has a question.
Thank you, Dan. I know that I would hope that you take a look at it. It's been yeoman's work. The snow was removed on Tuesday, and it's much better. This is a winter that we haven't had in a few winters, so we have a new contractor, so we're working on that, but we're really grateful for y'all's flexibility and patience, and know that it is a barrier for people, so thank you for bringing it up. We're really grateful for that.
And I will say that we, you know,
Use the mic.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I will say that this new contract has been a little bit problematic. It's with a large contractor, Seabreeze. You've probably seen them all over town, but they're new to us, and we had a few bumps in the road early on in November and December. I think we're better now. Of course, we're at the end of the season. We've learned a lot. Again, this parking lot management is difficult, and I don't know. You know, I wasn't involved in it before, and God love the people that did it, because it is a lot of work, and we haven't done a good enough job with the sand and salt barrels that are out there. In fact, one's missing. I have no idea where it went. So I've left a message for Seabreeze to do that. So yes, problem, I know, and we're aware of it.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Sam.
Good. Well, it's been a fairly long haul for me in this position, and people have asked, how are you feeling? And I think, to be very honest, I'd say a sense of relief. One of the difficulties or challenges of being in a leadership position is just that you're always waiting for the next sort of, not crisis always, but there's always something that's going to be coming, and you don't know when it's going to be coming. But that said, I have had many, many people have come forward unsolicited and said, Sam, thank you for doing X, Y, or Z. And it is a way that the community expresses hospitality very graciously. So thank you to you all. There are particular people who have been working extremely hard behind the scenes and have helped me a great deal. Fred Fowler, I think one of my first experiences at St. Luke's was going out to breakfast with Fred, and Fred kind of putting his arm around me and saying, we really need some help around the building. And it has been a pleasure to work with Fred, particularly. George Cooper has been wonderful as George Stevens, sorry.
Right, he did it.
It's been
I get
great.
it, Sam. I hear you loud and clear, man. I get it.
But speaking of George Cooper, I was his junior warden while he was senior warden, and those of you who have come more recently know what a wonderful person what a wonderful presence he was here well before we got here. And but I think George really helped me kind of get integrated into the system and asked me to be his junior warden, and then I was fortunate to succeed him as senior warden. Behind the scenes, we have Jack Swanton, who is sitting over here behind the screen. And many of the improvements that we've made over past recent years, Jack really has been the driving force, and I get a little bit of credit for helping, but Jack is really the brains behind the operation. You may be surprised that we started streaming services in 2015. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And so it was well before COVID, and it's just wonderful that we have that presence. Now, last but not least on the thanks, in particular, my wife, Ann Fowler. You can't do this job without having the support of someone close to you who knows the challenges and who is there to talk through things that, things that come up and you need support. So Annie, thank you so much for your support and guidance. I have a couple of other things to say. One, I just want to give my 30,000-foot version of the sort of financial situation we're in. One, there's some pluses. Like, if you look at the data on stewardship this year, the average pledge has gone up by maybe $500 at least this past season. So that's great. People are being more generous. They recognize the situation we're in. The minus is that we have fewer pledgers. And if you look at the history in the annual report of the number of pledges per year, it's been going down steadily. And that's really a serious concern as we move forward. You'll also see that the deficits, our annual deficits, have been going steadily down for the last 3 years. We have been running deficit budgets for the last 3 years. They've been going steadily down, and you might say, well, gee, that's terrific. It's going to go down to zero, and we're going to come back up. Well, I certainly pray that that will be true. But the reason the deficits have gotten smaller, particularly the past year, is that we have vacant staff positions. And there are things in the budget that Jamie didn't exactly say this, but we've been putting aside $20,000 a year for the past several years into the operating budget for unexpected repairs, unexpected expenses that come up. This year, we couldn't put in that $20,000. And the word that we're using on the vestry when we talk about our 2025 budget is that this is a scarcity budget. It is not a growth budget. It's a budget where we're kind of pared things away, and we all need to be informed about just where things are. And so I hope that in the coming year there will be many opportunities to kind of get updates about how we're lifting ourselves up. I have on my little note, plea for engagement. So I miss things like community suppers. I miss special events. I look forward to things. I mean, we had the World Cafe in September. That was wonderful. And it's not coincidental that when George asked how many of you were at the World Cafe, there were a whole lot of hands. I know there were 72 people at that World Cafe. And I'll bet there were at least 45 hands that went up in the crowd today. So what does that tell you? There's a core of committed people here. We are it. We're the key group. We're the people who come out. And we have to be stepping up and trying to make that group bigger. So I just thought last week, I remember some events that I really thought were successful. They were really great for the community. I haven't been here that long, and I'm sure people who've been longer will have all of you, even if you've only been here a short time, will have things where, gee, I came out to that event, it was great. So what am I thinking of? Like, let's say the the silent auction event that was held here. There was wonderful food, beverages, many really nice things to bid on. I remember a picnic that we had. It was an end-of-year picnic. It was out in the parking lot. Terrible place. But it was right out there by the entrance where where we're having trouble with our unhoused people. But it was wonderful. The picnic table set up. There were people from the community who we don't see very often. So, what's the point? Now I think, okay, each of these events that I think about, I remember who led them. There were people helping to lead these events. Without people to lead events like those, they're not going to happen. If you say, okay, that green sheet I filled out, vestry, new vestry members, what are they going to do? They're going to lead all the events for us. They're not. All right? We can't do that. So that's my plea for engagement. Follow the example of people who come before. Last but not least, I want to just say that I think it's really important for us to think about this mission part. Who are we? Where do we find ourselves? We're in a world that is changing really fast. What is our church known for? It's not known for changing really fast. So I'm really concerned about the long-term survival of the church, not just this cathedral. But boy, if we're gonna grow and thrive, we've got to be relevant. We've got to find ways, things to do here that will grow, not grow the community for the sake of growing it, but that will really make us a center point for the community. Really, we'll be like that, the trunk that has roots that are going out, and the roots are feeding us, and we're connected. So, God bless you all. God bless your leaders. And I'll be here to participate in a whole lot of things. And I thank you all for your support over the past decade or so that I've been deeply involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would you all indulge me just for a second? Last week at our vestry meeting, this isn't the thank you period, but this is really important because I want you all to recognize what Sam has done. Last week at our vestry meeting, led by our former clerk and the most beautifully spoken member of the vestry, who's is of course Dan McDonald. He spearheaded this resolution that was passed, I will say, unanimously. Whereas Sam, it's a resolution honoring Samuel Miller Allen. Whereas Sam has faithfully and tirelessly served the Cathedral Church of St. Luke's, Portland, Maine, as junior from 2015 and senior warden from 2019 and 2020 and 2023 and 25. And whereas as junior warden and chair of the Building and Grounds Committee, Sam learned everything there is to know about the building and their systems and kept them in good repair, including reconstruction of the lancet windows, new window inserts, cleaning the sanctuary floor, construction and installation of pew racks for hymnals and prayer books, acquisition of cushions for all the pews, and countless other unknown projects. And whereas Sam oversaw the modernization of the cathedral's bylaws, and whereas as tech pro, Sam facilitated live streaming of services during COVID, procured hearing assistance devices, and enhanced internet access throughout the cathedral, and whereas Sam was ecclesiastical authority in the summer of 2023, oversaw everything, and was generally served as the go-to guy for anything having to do with the cathedral, and all the while serving with confidence, modesty, and patience. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the lesser chapter of the Cathedral Church of St. Luke and meeting assembled that the undersigned members of hereby express their gratitude, thanks, and admiration for Sam's abundant service to the cathedral over many years, and further express their appreciation for Sam's friendship, character, gentleness, reliability, patience, trust, discretion, and wisdom, and further look forward to Sam's continued presence among us as he takes on new responsibilities and challenges in the years to come. Done this day in Portland, Maine, the 19th day of February 2025. Thank you, Sam. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, Dan is great. The next stage of we're going to open the floor for questions, and we would hope that if you're a vestry member and you'd like to help answer some of these questions, that would be really, really helpful. I want to guide us in our conversation. We had this really interesting kind of exercise for us, which we want to make sure that we answer your questions, but if we could, yeah, we can see it, my glasses. If we could start with just a moment. We had this question raised to us by Randy, your treasurer, and it's been an interesting meditation for us. Imagine it's 5 years from now, 2030. Can you believe it's only 5 years until 2030? Imagine it's 5 years from now, 2030, and the cathedral is flourishing beyond what we ever dreamed. What do you see as the most meaningful way our collective generosity has shaped our future? How about that? Isn't that an amazing question? Because it's about engagement, and it's about participation, and it's about an expectation of growth, which I have, and I look forward to, along with all of your help. What questions do you have for me or for your vestry that we can answer? Yeah, I'll take the mic. Any questions? That's easy. Yeah, I see a question back here. Is that one on? This one. Now, we're going to use the streaming just so the folks at home can hear. Yeah, we're gonna try to use a mic just for the sake of folks at home hearing.
I don't shout into
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm being a little presumptuous here because I'm not a member. I can't vote. I couldn't sign in, but I love this church. I love the people here. I honestly am not sure I'm an Episcopalian, but I'm going to the class. I'm going to see what I can do.
Good.
Have you ever considered pledging units from non-members?
Sure.
I would be glad to pledge.
All right, lock the door.
One
Lock the door.
possibility.
There's a pledge card in the back. I'm going to get it for you right now.
Also, volunteering opportunities.
Absolutely.
What if I approached people who are non-members, who I saw leave today because they were non-members? Now, maybe they're all in your class, George. There's that possibility. Maybe I'll meet them there.
Yeah.
But couldn't we kind of get together and maybe run an event?
Yeah.
Couldn't we also volunteer? There are several people who come here on a regular basis, but I know, like I am, I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I'm an Episcopalian. There's a lot I love, and there's a lot I don't like. So I'm going to find out more about it. I'm going to see if I want to join, but in the meantime, I want to pledge.
Here you go.
Harold already does.
I told you I had it in the back. Anybody else who tries to sneak out of here and wants one, I've got it
Yeah,
for
but
you.
these are all members. You need to tell this to the people who
All
are
right.
non-members.
Thank you.
who
Thank
often
you so
sit
much.
around. Anyhow, my suggestions.
Those are good suggestions. We like suggestions tied to action, right? Wasn't that amazing? I want a pledge card. I will pledge. Here you go. Here you go. Thank you.
So I came here from a church in Chicago that had a very loose interpretation of what it meant to be a member. It was a very light level of responsibility and commitment. You had to be a giver of record, and you had to attend a certain number of times. One of the things that is a challenge for the church is this bulwark that whether we have built or not, we give the impression that there are these barricades to being fully involved. And I encourage us as a community to think about ways to make the boundary between us as members and the rest of the world as porous as possible.
Yeah, I mean one of the ways that I think is most interesting that I've been wondering about and considering is the very fact that we use this space on Sunday mornings as a sacred place, and our ministries that serve other congregants, right, on Tuesdays and Thursdays are downstairs and in the back door and in a parking lot. What would it be if we fed all people in this place? What would it be if the people who came here seeking our love and food and attention came in the front door as opposed to the back door in the basement? What would we look like to our community? Would people see a barrier? Right? The question around our identity and how we see ourselves as not just givers to people, but one with each other is directly tied to our mission. Directly. And as long as people come and they don't see themselves as able to participate in our shared life together, we will not be able to actually be relevant. Shayna. Shayna has a question.
So I have a question and also a point, but I'll make the point before the question. Those that may not know of the work of some committee members of the newly formed initiative of Walking Together, that hasn't been voiced yet in this meeting, but there are some of us, and myself being one of them, is please join us in caring for our neighbors who are most affected in this time and space and climate. But also the other thing is, what does it look like to think outside of the box? Like, I was just thinking with this question, could that mean having community classes here that people in our community host and that we provide a space for, just as a suggestion?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think that there is a great deal of work that we can do. And remember what I talked about in my sermon today, the distance between our understanding that we need to do this work and our willingness to change. Because I'm going to tell you, if we're going to use this space, you know the first thing that's going to have to happen? Pews are gone. I've always sat in this pew. Right? So we're going to need to get comfortable with absolutely reframing our understanding of this body, of understanding how our experience may be a barrier for someone else's welcome, right? And that's not easy. And that's what it's going to take. This work that we're called to do is about this body. But it's always so much easier to talk about the body, but I'm going to encourage you to think about yourself and think about what you need to do to change your understanding of a relationship with the wider world, with the church, and how we can be relevant in the world. It's not easy. It is not going to be easy, and it's going to be necessary. Because by God, we have tried to do the same thing over and over, and as Sam points out, we have people who are deeply committed, giving more and more every year, but there's less and less of them. And that, as a long-term practice, really can't be sustainable. Yeah, I see Judd first, and then you, Ann.
Thanks. One of the things that Susan Shoglis said to us was that while we are very welcoming, what we say to people after they have started coming is, this is what you're going to have to do to belong.
Right.
Instead of being willing to change and grow. And well, that's one point. The other is more a question of logistics, but in the endowment fund, there is a prayer book endowment. Is that, I mean, what's being done with that?
Right, so we have in our endowment, and this was really helpful, if you saw, there's a video that Randy put together. If you didn't see her description, the question was about endowments for particular things, like for prayer books, when we're now printing materials as opposed to using prayer books, right? This is a way of identifying the fact that we do have an endowment, which is around $4 million, and parts of it are designated for particular ministries. Other parts of it are what we call unrestricted. One of the restricted parts is around our prayer book. The way that we've understood that, Judd, is that we take a percentage, you all know, we take a percentage of our endowment every year, and that's applied to make up a substantial portion of our budget. Of that portion, a smaller portion comes from the restricted budget for prayer books. Because we buy prayer books, because we buy music, because we produce bulletins for you all, we recognize that that is actually fulfilling the purpose for which it was created. Does that make sense to you? And there are others, too. The Flower Guild is another one. I mean, you can kind of imagine what people would have endowed over the years. Fair? I saw another question for you, Ann.
I don't see how we're going to be relevant if we are stuck with an ancient, as we say, ancient worship practice.
Ancient worship practice. So changing our worship practices.
Yes. I've preached about this. You know how I feel.
Yeah.
I won't say any more.
That's great. No, this is a great question, and this is a great question, you know, about what it means to be a cathedral. What does our worship look like, right? This kind of classic Episcopal Anglican tradition of Eucharist 3 times a day on Sunday. Like, is that working anymore? Right? You better ask Thomas about that, right?
Oh, I have.
I know you have. I hear and here, yeah.
When we're speaking about hospitality, we said we need to be more hospitable to newcomers, but we also need to be hospitable to people that have been here for a long time.
Absolutely.
And one of the ways that I've seen it happen before is I'm not a cook, so I can't take credit for that, but there have been places that they'll have like a cooking mission.
Sure.
And whenever there's a funeral, whether it's from someone from out of the congregation or in it, they provide for, like food.
Receptions and things, right?
Receptions, exactly. And they also do the same thing for people that are either shut in or home from the hospital.
Yeah. This is a great idea. This extends kind of this conversation of hospitality once again from an external place of newcomers to people who love each other and demonstrate this thing. I saw Bob's hand, and then Abby, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
I want to suggest to you that we used to call our rectors deans because the tradition has been that there was a school or a university attached to the church. And my hope is that we can think about doing that again. The other thing is that our neighbor next door was at some point, for a couple of years, the school for young men and women in this diocese that wanted to become clergy. Tell me the name of the school. What? Bangor. The Bangor Seminary was located next door. There is now no seminary structure in the state for young people that want to get a decent biblical education. And I suggest that that would be one of the true meanings of being a cathedral. We have the facilities. There are others besides me who think it's a good idea. But my hope is that we could also do it in light of the new curricula which are being spread throughout the countries, universities that introduce material now that none of us had the opportunity of attending when we chose our courses in college or graduate school.
Thank you. I mean, I think what Bob's raising is a great question about mission.
Right.
He's seeing mission as part of being education. We as a body are going to need to make that decision.
And I get just one more comment. One of my areas of study is neuroscience, and the other is quantum mechanics. And I am prepared, if we had to do it next week, to do it. I can tell people how God is physically within them. As he said in the Old Testament, you know, I'm making you in my image. Well, from quantum mechanics perspective, there is a way of explaining how the Almighty is in you. But I'll make you hold your breath until the time comes when I can share that.
Thank you so much. I had a question over here from Abby. Do y'all know Abby? Abby, stand up. We just baptized Abby this fall.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Just really briefly, I guess this is with the intention to like plant a seed and for us to ponder just opportunities. Am I speaking loud enough? I'm so sorry, guys. I get nervous. Okay, just to plant a seed and to ponder opportunities. Maybe we could potentially, for hospitality reasons, team up a bit with Maine Needs because they're a wonderful nonprofit. They're always asking for things. That could be something we could, you know, they have a rotating list of needs always. Maybe even more promotion of St. Elizabeth's. I've been trying to get word out. I think that would benefit so many people because that's an amazing ministry we have. And I was curious if there has ever been AA or an equivalent here for people. For us, maybe a rise in that or something. And maybe the idea of volunteering for church suppers as a fundraiser, just to help out with that.
Abby, these
All I
are
had to
great
say.
ideas. We should
Thank
put
you.
Abby's on the committee for sure, right? Which is good. If you stand up and speak, Abby, you get caught, right? Do we have the results back? We do. I want Linda to go, and then this will be, and then we have one other question from Eleanor, and then we'll kind of start to land the plane. How's that feel for y'all?
I wanted to follow what Abby was talking about and what Shana referred to, which is our Walking Together ministry that's just been formed in January as Walking Together. And what that involves is walking together with God, with one another, with people who are vulnerable in today's world, and with the organizations that serve them. And so, if you have ideas about organizations and people that we might want to walk together with, we have liaisons with organizations all over the town. And all of you, as Shana said, are invited to join in with the Walking Together ministry.
Thank you, Linda. All right, Eleanor.
Hi, I'm Eleanor. I'm a member of the vestry, and I just want to thank you all for all of these amazing ideas. I do want to point out, I guess, though, is that we are one building of a whole city, and all of these amazing ideas, some of them might be in conflict with each other. Like, for example, did you know that there's a brass and wind ensemble community group that meets downstairs? You know, if we have housing, would they still be able to practice here? Would that impact St. Elizabeth's or the food pantry? I'm not saying this to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm saying it to kind of encourage that while we're one building and part of our job as a community is to determine what will our resources be best serving to the community, let that encourage you to find, if, for example, you're really excited about helping with housing, there are so many possibilities just within the city that you can help support. And so even if there's some disappointment about if and how the church moves forward, please don't let that be a discouragement, but let that push you forward to support your energy somewhere that needs it as well.
Thank you. That is really wise. It's great advice. I think that this is a good place for us to point, because it's a good place for us to kind of get to, because there's a way in which we as a body are now kind of recognizing that, for all of the kind of limitations we have, one of them is space, right? One of them is money. One of them is energy. And there are other limitations for us. This work around mission needs to fit within the constraints that we have. And so I'm grateful. I want to say a couple thank yous before we kind of announce the budgets. I will say that our outgoing treasurer, Tim Wilkins, is not here, and I have a special guest for him. Tim, as you all know, was the treasurer for many years, and we didn't get to thank him appropriately last year when we had our meeting. So I just want you all to know that Tim will be receiving an icon of the Cathedral of St. Luke with this note that says, "A brief note of gratitude for your amazing work as treasurer. The work you did in moving us to realm, organization of accounts is so appreciated, and your commitment to St. Luke's is wonderful." I hope this icon of St. Luke's will remind you of Luke 10:27, which says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." So thank you. Please join me with a round of applause for Tim Wilkins. The other person that I want to thank publicly is Catherine. Catherine, are you here still? Catherine? She's probably cleaning up. But Catherine is ending her time on vestry unless she gets elected again. And there's a way in which, here you go, Catherine. Catherine Hyde, and it says, here's what it says. "I'm so grateful for your work on vestry. Your warmth and commitment are so appreciated. I hope this small icon of St. Luke will provide a reminder of Luke 31, which is, of course, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The golden rule. You do it, and we are grateful for it." Catherine, thank you so much. I don't know whether Michael Thorne is still here, but I'm incredibly grateful for Michael Thorne's service on vestry. I have another icon for Michael, and I will be giving it to him too. And it says, "A quick note of gratitude for your years of service on the vestry. I am deeply thankful for your commitment to making the cathedral the best it can be. And I hope this icon will be a reminder of Luke 10:29 through 37, which is," look it up, "the parable of the Good Samaritan." My favorite, the gospel in a nutshell. And so I know that Michael is committed to helping people up. And so I thought of that for him. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. So the one person that I want to thank, you all know that we have this interesting thing here where we have vestry members who are elected, and then we also have bodies that are appointed. And one person can serve both. In the case of Dan McDonald, who was both elected as a vestry member and also then appointed as clerk of the vestry. And Dan is finishing his service. I hate to say it, Dan, you're timed out for a little bit. You have to take that's sad for us. He has to take a year off, but be here next year. We'll call you again. But Dan has been just amazing and supportive. He provides sound legal advice. He is incredible at keeping notes, not just for the vestry, but also for the Financial Advisory Committee. He brings a warm sense of humor, and he is a passionate advocate for people who need help with immigration and other legal issues. Dan, you are among us a saint of God, so thank you. I raised this small icon for you. It says, "A note of gratitude for your years of service on the lesser chapter and as clerk. Your commitment to the Cathedral of St. Luke is so appreciated, and I hope this small icon will remind you of Luke 18:27, which says, 'Nothing is impossible with God and Dan.'" So thank you. That's it. Yeah, well done. The other thing that I want to say is I have one more thing for Sam Allen. Sam Sam, what you should know is that he also, in addition to being all of these other things, he leads Noom Zoom, which is a way in which folks are using technology to gather from this cathedral and from elsewhere in the diocese. And they use this great book, which used to be called Holy Men and Holy Women. And I thought, that's perfect. We'll just add a page for Sam, Holy Men and Holy Women, Sam. But now it's called A Great Cloud of Witnesses, right? But we were just talking last week that we need an updated one, and Sam, over to you, man.
Hey.
So yours goes, so it's good. So thank you.
Yep.
So it's good.
I had one. Is this going?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, good. I just wanted to thank Jamie too.
Yeah.
Because Jamie, one of the great things that happened this past year was for Fred Fowler agreed to be acting junior warden for what turned out to be an indefinite period. And as you all know, Jamie was extremely sick in the summer of 2023. And we really wanted, we knew Jamie would be an excellent junior warden, but his health wasn't good enough where we felt we could twist his arm.
We prayed heartily for his recovery.
But as you're aware from all the accomplishments that Jamie mentioned, he's really been a huge asset, as has his wife Meredith, who is sitting in the back.
Thank you.
To the cathedral. And Jamie, just thanks so much for
thank you, Jamie.
all you are doing.
Yeah.
I might cry because this place, I think the prayers and support that Meredith and I got, because I was very, very sick, and it meant a lot to us, I feel. And I'm forever grateful for all your support.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's good to begin with gratitude and end with gratitude, isn't it? That this community gathered here for its ups and downs does in fact love each other. Sometimes it's very specific, like praying for somebody who's sick. But other times it's recognizing the face of Christ in each other. You are all beloved children of God, called into this very strange place called the Cathedral of St. Luke. We wound up here for God's grace, and we've been given work to do, and it's going to take work. I'm hopeful. Gratitude and hopefulness are two things that we're going to need in spades. And can I add one more? Patience. You know I have no patience. I drink far too much coffee for patience. But there's a way in which sometimes the Holy Spirit moves us very quickly. And other times the Holy Spirit, well, she recognizes that we're in a church that knows it needs to grow and change, but is also resistant to it. And so we're going to need to be patient with ourselves and patient with each other in this coming months. I want to announce the results of the election and thank all of those folks who stood for election. We had an enormous group of fantastic candidates. John Hennessy was elected as senior warden. Thank you, John. Our vestry, you all have called Peter Carlton, Laura Lyons, and Catherine Hyde as members of your vestry. Congratulations. And as delegates to convention, we have Sam Allen, Sarah Brake, Fred Fowler, Susan McCullough, Philip Hamilton. Thank you all so much. What a good group. Can we take a moment in silence together? Dear God, we ask your prayers for this place that we love so much. We need your Holy Spirit to guide us and encourage us, comfort us and enliven us. We ask you to imbue us with a sense of your purpose for this place, for this city, for this world. Give us a sense of how we can be your hands for each other. We need your help, God. We need patience. We need strength. We need to be challenged. We are grateful for the grace you've given us to do this work and look forward to all that you call us to do together. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. I would entertain a motion to end this meeting. Is there a second? All in favor? If you would like to stick around and help us clean up, it would be great. Otherwise, thank you all so much. We're grateful. Thank you all.